Hello and welcome to this video on toasting your own wood chips. This video is an introduction to making your own chips, as sometimes the commercial varieties are just not suitable for your purposes. Most commercial wood chips are going to be oak, but you can also source a few other options. These can of course be limited. Things like hickory, pecan, and used whiskey barrels. The last of these are generally made from either American or white oak. These options may not be to your liking or suitable for your purposes. In that case, something like cherry, maple, and apple might be more appealing. In the latter case, you can often buy them as smoking chips for meats and other preserved or flavoured small goods. The problem with these is that they are not suitable to use as is. Fortunately, the same means as making wood chips for aging applies to smoking chips. As it would to any other, you can just skip a few steps. To start with, you need something of good quality. Whether this is oak or something else, you want to be sure it is suitable for use. The last thing you want is a piece of wood that is sat on the ground and filled with fungus, or has been used in a house or for furniture where it is exposed to various chemicals and surface finishes. At this point, your oak is probably a single solid piece. You will have to break it into slices, blocks, or splinters. How you go about doing this is up to you and will likely depend on the available equipment. Everything from a thoroughly cleaned and sharpened axe to a bandsaw or other power tool. The size of these resulting chips and blocks will to some degree be influenced by the type of roast that you want. Overall though, you do want relative consistency in the end product. Once your chips or similar are prepared, you are ready for the next step. Once your wood is cut to size, you need to be aware of what kind of roast you want. Will it be light, medium, or dark? Light roasting is generally done by toasting oak or other wood at a low temperature for a short time. This is largely going to produce vanillin, a product of the lignin within the timber. Lignin converts to vanillin and it produces a vanilla-like aroma and taste. This also helps to reduce the amount of tannin. This means you're not going to get the same dark colour or bitter flavour. Finally, by not having roasted it anywhere near as much, you don't get that smoky flavour. Medium roast is the balancing act between the available options. It's a higher temperature for a longer time. Generally, you don't get that strong smoky flavour. There's no obvious charring of the timber. You do, however, get some breakdown in the hemicellulose. This adds a caramel-like flavour. It also allows the release of some of the tannins. Despite that, you still get some of the vanilla flavour. Heavy or dark roasting is the last option, or at least the last category of options. You'll need to heat this up to a very high temperature initially. This will char the surface, and that will give a strong smoky flavour. You then bring it down to a lower temperature for an extended period, somewhere closer to medium toasting temperatures. That helps you to bring out those other flavours, but it also gives you that strong, very obvious toasted dark, almost punchy flavour. This particular level is often not used by itself, mostly because that charred taste can be overwhelming. Knowing which of these you're roughly aiming for is one thing. How to create it is something else, and it's somewhat more nebulous. In part, it's going to depend on the size of the chips you're making. First thing you need to do is take your oven and preheat it. This unfortunately will vary significantly based on the kind of wood chips you're working with. Different kinds of wood will require different temperatures, and you need to experiment both with the wood itself and your oven to figure out what temperatures will result in which particular result. Having done this, you'll also need to wrap the wood in various sheets of aluminium. You can either do this as a single pocket, or wrap it in individual layers to separate them out so you can take it out at different times. This is a particularly useful approach when testing your oven to figure out what temperature leads to what result at which time frame. Place your oak chips or other wood chips in the oven, preferably as close to the exact middle of the oven as you can get. This ensures there's more or less even heat right around and on every surface. You don't want the oak chips on the very periphery or on the bottom side of the oak chips to be charred while the very top has almost no changes whatsoever. Leave them be for 15 minutes and then come back and check. Repeat this until you're satisfied with the coloration of the chips. Take them out of the oven and let them cool off. This process is one reason why we suggest making multiple, smaller packets of aluminium foil with the oak chips within them. If you have them lined up side by side, you can take them out one at a time every 15 minutes and examine the contents. This is the quickest and easiest way to identify just how high a temperature and for how long you need to toast your chips for each time. Once you have your chips, it can be applied to most every kind available. The challenge from here is going to be figuring out just how much to use for your purpose. A homemade or custom wood chip is going to have a small degree of variation no matter how much you try to be consistent. This is rather unlike commercial varieties, which are often chosen and made because there is a supply of consistent and predictable materials. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions you have below.